Well, good afternoon. Today is Saturday, the 14th of September, 2019, Journal 169, T+165. Um, you'll have to pardon me if this is a little bit more introspective and searching than other posts have been, but it's something um, that's been on my mind pretty much all day. Uh, Pretty much since yesterday, actually. As I've written a previous post uh, that's on Facebook and on Twitter and on LinkedIn, uh, I've become addicted to uh, two newsletters. One is created and distributed by my dear friend and editor of Misfire, What to Do When Things Aren't Running on All Cylinders. His is called Seven Good Things, and that's exactly what it is. There, it is really eclectic. It flows out of his incredibly fertile and beautiful mind. And there are things that you might not think that you would be interested in, but once you dive into the seven uh, different directions that he's put, it's like a sign in a movie where the arrows are all pointing in different directions. If you follow those arrows, you're liable to find yourself in places that you've never been before, but are glad that you visited. Um, I'm always uh, excited when I read the newsletter to see how many of the things that he's put in there that I'm already familiar with, which excites me because uh, it helps me believe it helps me cherish the illusion um, that we have that much in common. The other one was a newsletter that I believe Frederick suggested called How to Be Cheerful or something like that, and you've got it in the previous post. And one of the stories in How to Be Cheerful really impacted me. You know, we talk about the holographic brain and its ability, the ability of the amygdala and the holographic brain to take you back to an experience in which you can see, hear, um, feel, smell everything that occurred when that particular event was burned into your brain. This particular article was about a little town in England where doctors have prescribed uh, a cure, or at least palliative care, for loneliness. And the cure, the RX that they've created, is involvement, is community, is reaching out to ensure that people aren't left alone to think only about their own situation. And they've got volunteers in the community that have become engaged in doing this, and it's pretty amazing when you look at the results that they've had. You know, it's like at one point it was like for every dollar that they've spent, they've saved 6 or 7. Excuse me, for every pound that they've spent, they've recovered or saved 6 or 7 pounds in cost for a treatment that wasn't necessary. And that really got me to thinking. It got me to thinking about experiences that I've had that I've that have been shared with other family members. And one of those, actually two of those, quite clearly had to do with my father's illness. And my father went in for open heart surgery. The doctors, the cardiologists, promised him a solid 5 years of additional health where he could work and be productive. um, which was, admittedly ambitious for someone who was 82, diabetic, overweight, and was starting to show signs of chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD. But they really believed with a perfect faith that if they did this bypass surgery, my dad would be fine for at least another 5 years. Well, the surgery was a success. My dad was up and walking that afternoon, the afternoon after the surgery. What happened was he contracted a hospital-borne infection, MRSA, Methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus infection, which is about as hard to kill as anything you can find in a hospital. It doesn't respond to any of the normal range of antibiotics that are out there. And that took my dad into sepsis. It took him into ICU. It took him into isolation because of the infection. And if you know anything about isolation, and I do, after having gone through my transplant regimen, it's all yellow gowns, gloves, masks, at all. And it's not very much fun, especially ultimately when you're on a respirator and you can't communicate. It's very difficult for you to communicate. But that's not what struck me and struck us as a family about what was going on there. And, from the time my dad went into the hospital for his surgery, which is a neighboring community, probably about 25 or 30 minutes away from here, my dad was never alone. He was never alone in that room. Rarely, if ever. And many nights that included somebody there with him all night long. I used to go first thing in the morning before we'd open the shop, make sure everything was okay, then leave and come back after we closed the shop. My mother was there all day. My wife was there in the morning and then in the afternoon. And this went on and on. And I'm not saying that because we're special or anything like that. When my dad was at Barlow Hospital, which was an hour and a half away, right near Dodger Stadium, which is, 2 or 3 of the busiest freeways in Los Angeles away, we maintained the same regimen. What was so saddening to us was the number of people that were in both the hospital here in Thousand Oaks, the hospital at the base of Chavez Ravine where Dodger Stadium is, and the care center where my father ultimately came before going back into the hospital, back into Barlow Respiratory Hospital. The number of people that didn't have anybody that came to visit them at all, who languished there, who spent 24/7 in a hospital environment with no contact, no human contact, with the exception of the medical personnel that was there. And as good as Barlow is, and it's one of the finest hospitals I think you'll find, especially for respiratory-related diseases, that's still not ideal, being in that kind of isolation. And I was thinking about that, and in another instance, I saw a picture, an image of a homeless person sleeping on the street in a large city. I don't know whether it was San Francisco, Manhattan, Chicago. It doesn't really matter. It could have been Los Angeles. It could have been anywhere. It could have been anywhere in the United States, but especially large cities. Somebody asleep on the sidewalk as people walked by, completely oblivious to the fact that there was a human being lying on the concrete, sleeping at their feet. Some of them were on cell phones. Some of them were in conversation with each other. Some of them were just plain oblivious. I think that conditions like that, and there are far too many for me to discuss here in this short couple of minutes that we have together, but it's certainly something worth considering, is that if we let ourselves become inured to these things, if we let ourselves see these events take place around us without really seeing them, if we lose the ability to care, to be moved by the plight of others, we lose a great deal of what makes us human. And that kind of atrophy, of the heart, is dangerous. It's dangerous not only for those people who suffer, and you know, I'm guilty of this as much as anybody else is. I'm as guilty of getting off the freeway and seeing somebody that has a sign that says they're homeless and, you know, they're out panhandling for dollars and ignoring their plea for help. I'm not going to, you know, it's something I'm not proud of. But I do give to charitable causes that do address this issue. My fear is for the grifters, the people who make this a second career. But I think that we all have to become more sensitive, more compassionate, more empathetic to what other people are going through, if we want to experience the goodness and the kindness of others who are trying to help us. You know, as always, I really enjoy and look forward to your comments. If you have any thoughts on this, you know, I'd be really delighted to know what they are. So please share them with me. Till tomorrow, stay well, take care, behave yourselves. If you're in Southern California, it's hot, stay cool. If you're anywhere else in the country, be comfortable. And pray a little bit for the folks in the Bahamas with that storm headed that way. They need all the help they can get, and prayer has been known to work in some instances. So stay well, take care. Till tomorrow, adios.